Last week's devotions were based on Harlan Popov's book, Tortured for His Faith. I encourage you to go listen to them. You can find the previous ones at the link that I send you on WhatsApp. This week we'll learn some more from his story. He was sent to prison for 13 years for being a pastor in communist Bulgaria, but his faith in Jesus kept him going through some awful experiences. One of the things that really struck me as I read this book was Popov's great passion to lead others to Christ. He essentially ran a church from prison, talking to the other men about Jesus, leading them to faith. When he was working in the fields of the prison, if someone asked him about Jesus, he would kneel down with that person and pretend that they were inspecting something on the ground so that he could pray for them without arousing the suspicion of the guards. But one time when he did this, a guard rode over on his horse and said, "What are you men doing?" Popov said, "Looking at the harvest." And the guard didn't know he was talking about the spiritual harvest that God had given him. And a touching story in the book is of a man named Mitko who was brought into Popov's prison. This man kept wildly proclaiming his innocence, shouting the praise of Lenin very loudly to try and convince the guards that he was innocent. And Popov writes this on page 44, "My heart went out to him, and I began to tell him of Christ and the hope we can have in salvation. For days I worked to penetrate Mitko's sheer panic and get through to him. One day the wild look left his eyes and he began to really listen. My heart rejoiced, I was really reaching him. 2 days later, Mitko said, 'Pastor, pray for me.' I knelt down with Mitko and together we prayed. He prayed so earnestly and intensely, so from the heart that the cell floor where he knelt was wet with tears. He had a wonderful and true experience with Christ. He became peaceful, quiet, with a deep inner satisfaction from God. Then I knew, if nothing ever came of my imprisonment except this one soul led to Christ, it would be worth it all." God used Harlan Popov in prison to lead others to Christ. What stops you and I wonder, from sharing Christ? We're free, but perhaps we're imprisoned by our own fear of rejection, of offending people, of failing. Popov didn't let his prison scare him, but he boldly shared Christ with those around him. Maybe there's a Mitko in your life who is desperate for the good news and the hope of salvation. Will you take the time to share the good news with your Mitko? Like Popov, friends, you'll find that leading even one person to Christ is worth all the imprisonment and torture in the world.